Integrating self-leadership strategies into Christian leadership, foundation for human flourishing. The presenter is Martha Seje. The objective of this discussion is to synthesize self-leadership principle with Christian leadership. And to start us, we look at the definition of self-leadership. We will look at the definition of leadership. We'll also talk about Christian leadership. Now, leadership is considered as a complex construct with different definitions among scholars. For this study, we are building on Nothouse 2021, Newstead et al. 2019's definition of leadership. And as they define leadership, they bring in a very pivotal element of leadership, which is referred to as influence. And this influence is what makes their definitions pertinent to this study. And my question is, can a leader lead others effectively without first being able to lead self? Now that leadership is regarded as a process whereby an individual influences a group of individuals to achieve a common goal. In the contemporary society, where secular humanity challenged and undone by moral wrong in secular living, Christians must engage ethics that discern the good, guide humanity to flourish according to the truth, and live a virtuous life amid modern problems. Christian leadership is leadership that is rooted in unique foundation, distinct from secular leadership theories, with the gospel serving as its guiding principle and goal. The dimension that define and sort out the theological, personal, and social commitment of a Christian leader include calling, competence, confidence, and character. So all these dimensions emphasizes the importance of self-awareness and application leadership skills at the personal level as a prerequisite for effectively leading others. For you to accept the call, for you to be competent, for you to have confidence, for you to have the character according to the Bible teachings, you have to understand self. And that is why we are bringing in self-leadership, leadership, and Christian leadership. So what is self-leadership? Neck et al. 2020 defines self-leadership as a process of influence for directing behavior toward accomplishing goals. Barton 2018 highlights significance of self-leadership in her work, Strengthening the Soul of Your Leadership. Barton emphasized on the concept of the soul as essential you that exists beyond any role, any job, relationship, or external success, thereby affirming the individual core identity. So self-leadership involves influencing oneself and is foundational to leading others. That is according to Neck et al. 2020. This idea aligns with the biblical reference in Luke 10:27, where Jesus instructs that loving oneself is a prerequisite for loving one's neighbor. You cannot love your neighbor if you do not love self. Harari 2021 further expand on the concept, suggesting that self-leadership entails self-motivation rather than relying on external influences. As leaders, as Christian leaders, we should rely on self and not depend on others or other external factors to motivate us. Similarly, Shai considered self-leadership as critical starting point for enhancing work, performance, improving personal well-being, and achieving personal development, thus leading to the realization of flourishing at personal level. If performance is improved, if well-being is improved. If personal goals and developments are achieved, then generally we flourish as human beings. And that is why, as Christians, as Christian leaders, self-leadership is a prerequisite. For this study, the study focuses on self-leadership of Christian leadership in context of existing self-leadership models and self-assessment data, which applies to day-to-day Christian life as supported by Barton 2018. In his seminal work, Mann's 2015 delved into the concept of self-leadership, emphasizing its significance and advocating for further research to enhance understanding. Both Mann's 2015 and Neck et al. 2020 categorized self-leadership strategies into three primary areas: behavior-focused, natural reward-focused, and constructive thought-focused. Neck et al. Acknowledge the presence of overlapping elements among these strategies. So even at Christian leadership level, if we use these strategies, then we will build our leadership skills, we will build our leadership and eventually become effective leaders. If we build on behavior focus, if we build on natural reward focus, and we build on constructive thought focus as discussed in Neck et al. Behavior focused strategies. As detailed in Neck et al., behavior-focused strategies involve guiding oneself through challenges by making the undesirable desirable, using two critical approaches: strategies that modify the environment to beneficially impact behavior, and strategies imposed directly on oneself to influence behavior. The ability to alter one's immediate surrounding to guide behavior in a desirable way is supported by three methods. That is, reminders and attention focus, removal of negative cues, and enhancement of positive cues. That is according to Neck et al. 2020. Various passages specifically calling for intentional self-modification and spiritual discipline reinforce the biblical emphasis on self-leadership and environment shaping. For example, Proverbs 4:23 states that above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. This parallels the nudge approach of directing attention towards godly living by strategically placing reminders of positive cues. The deliberate removal of negative cues is reiterated in 1 Corinthians 15:33. Do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. And you realize that the perceived improvement and enhancement of positive cues can be supported again by Philippians 4:8. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatsoever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such. Meaning, at self level, if we as leaders, Christian leaders, we work on self by practicing these behavior-focused strategies, then we will eventually become effective leaders and help those around us, help ourselves realize our purpose. Like Neck et al.'s 2020, strategies for setting up nudge-friendly spaces, this biblical worldview acknowledges that creating an environment conducive for spiritual growth and godly behavior requires intentionality and planning. You become what you deliberately see, and you live by how your environment has been shaped. So, additionally, Neck et al. Discusses the human capacity for directing self-control techniques that Mann's 2015 identified as self-observation, self-goal setting, self-reinforcement, and self-pity. All this a Christian leader applies them at self-level. Then the leader comes out to influence followers effectively. or positively. We move to natural reward. Natural reward focused strategies are concerned with fostering a positive, intrinsic approach for self-leadership. Mars described this as process in which individuals cultivate intrinsic motivation by establishing meaningful connections with their task, thereby enhancing performance. Natural rewards can enhance performance. When performance is enhanced, humans flourish. These strategies are not dependent on external rewards, but are designed to create motivating feelings of self-control, competence, and purpose. We realize that individuals can promote natural reward strategies by altering their perceptions or behavior associated with the task performance, increasing feelings of competence, self-control, and task ownership. So when you have these natural rewards, you have what we call self-motivation. In the Bible, natural incentive-based strategies fit with intrinsically motivated, self-determined industrial psychology strategy. They invite believers to find meaning and fulfillment in jobs that are directly tied to serving God's purpose. Colossians 3:23 reads, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord and not for men." Philippians also says, Philippians 2:13, "For it is God who works in you to will and to act in order." Shifting from extrinsic incentives to intrinsic motivation will produce better work performance, make the job more meaningful, and produce a happier, more harmonious life. With all such adjectives, an individual will always flourish, will always attain the goals that are designed in our lives by God. Finally, constructive thought-focused strategies centers on what and how we think. We have scholars that have talked about constructive thought-focused strategies. They describe these strategies as focusing on establishing and modifying thought patterns in beneficial way. Constructive thought-focused strategies goes with the mental, the thinking. So 4 critical strategies for altering thinking patterns include self-analysis and improvement of belief systems, mental imagery of positive performance, positive self-talk to facilitate performance, the substitution of ineffective scripts with positive ones. Philippians 4:8 says, "Whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovable, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things," which is a virtual cut and paste for the strategy, essentially, of using imagery for positive performance, negative imagery for sport skill corrections, and positive self-talk for powering performance up. So what we think affects how we perform. As Christians, since our leadership is guided by the Bible, by the teachings of Christ, if we implement what is required of us at self-level, then our performance will increase. These thought-focused strategies provide a way of substituting uplifting, Christ-focused script rewrites of the default judgment that weigh many down. Or, as we termed it decades ago, setting one's mind on things above, which is a reference to mind substitution strategies to replace harmful, inexpedient, ineffective scripts with positive, supportive ones. Focusing on what is good sustains faith and strengthens its full expression in faith practices and effectiveness in every day. So what we think affects what we do. what we think affects how we do it. And therefore, as Christians, if we allow our thinking to align with the biblical foundations, then what we do will always bring glory to God and ultimately lead to our flourishment. From all this is a questionnaire that was taken by the researcher on self-leadership as recommended by Neck et al. And this questionnaire can help leaders identify their strengths, identify their weaknesses based on these strategies, that is, behavior-focused, reward strategies, and constructive thought strategies. So in this slide, we can all see that the questionnaire reveals some strengths and some weaknesses on the researcher. For example, the questionnaire reveals a strong performance in self-observation and self-goal setting with a high proficiency in cueing strategies. So as Christian leaders, if we can take this questionnaire, it can help us know areas of weaknesses and how to develop them at self-level. And when we develop them, we will ultimately realize what God has in store for us or attain our purpose in life. So these questionnaires are the questionnaire that is presented by Neck et al. Are focusing on the behavior-focused strategies. The questionnaire is also focusing on natural reward strategies, and it also talks about the final strategies that we have just mentioned. So if all Christian leaders that are listening to me, or all leaders that in this forum can take a moment and take this questionnaire as presented in Neck et al. 2020 and realize their weaknesses and strengths, it will be a great achievement, because the questionnaire is a tool that can be used to build our leadership skills. So before we conclude, the data that we have, the researcher took, revealed quite a number of issues. And from them, the researcher realizes that Barton 2018 facilitated the researcher's identification of gaps in the alignment between physical rhythms and spiritual practices. The researcher, akin to many adults, has struggled to prioritize the observance of Sabbath, which is, according to their church teachings, falls on Saturday, a day widely regarded as workday globally, thus complicating the observance of this holiday. Furthermore, the researcher noted that extensive church activities during Sabbath often lead to mental exhaustion, distracting from the restorative and sacred nature of days outlined in Exodus 28. So in response to these insights, the researcher, in their leadership capacity, is committed to establish balanced rhythms that honor the sanctity of Sabbath and align with divine intention. As Barton 2018 emphasizes the importance of integrating rhythms of engagement and retreat, work and rest, stillness and action, and silence and speech to foster spiritual replenishment and delight in the eyes of God. So if we all can take a moment and take those questionnaires, we can always identify these our weaknesses and our strengths and build on them. To conclude, self-leadership is an integral part of Christian leadership. Human flourishing and self-leadership are correlated. Bringing in self-leadership with the concept of biblical flourishing brings together personal leadership development to Christian leadership, where the concept of flourishing in human life flourishes and helps people in society enjoy good life. So just as I mentioned, the paper outlines self-leadership as a core pillar for Christian leadership and evaluates self-leadership concepts and concepts within this perspective to practically implement them. In doing so, the paper dives the concept of self-leadership into 3 dimensions: domains of self-leadership strategies. That is behavior-focused self-leadership strategies, natural reward-focused self-leadership strategies, and constructive thought-focused self-leadership strategies. Each strategy is analyzed to determine its direct relationship with individual performance and influence on human flourishing within a Christian worldview. I believe that if we all work on self-leadership, then ultimately leading others or influencing others will be very effective as Christian leaders. If we develop self-leadership based on the Christian foundation, we will ultimately influence others effectively based on Christian foundation and ultimately attain our purpose as designed by God, who is our creator. Thank you.